to that 30 area. So I'll go 30 and 3 ticks. Let me announce to the Discord. This is the moment it will reverse because I'm taking a video. All right, so I just entered another trade. Now, the logic for this trade is, as you can see, we've traded up and had this little bit of a retracement. Now, where did that retracement happen into? Well, we see this area right here, which is a low volume node on today's profile, and it overlaps with where we had a lot of these large sellers. So the idea is if these large sellers are going to defend their positions, then we are going to see a reaction from this lower volume node. So think of it just like two levels stacked together. Now, I'd say that more of the large sellers are actually up here in this area, but the way I see it is if they were willing to get in here and they didn't get a chance to get in here, and they're still in those positions, that's a prime area for them to defend and add to their position. So that logic is that if the market is going to sell off again, we're going to see sellers step back in and take control. And the way we confirm this trade should have some decent profits here. The open TP as well. This is just a level that I have here I can drag later. But if we are to see this this kind of trade be a solid trade, what we want to see is as we hit into that zone, which is right here, how do we react with the balance that forms? So I was very conservative. I've drew the largest range possible. You could have probably been a little more aggressive and maybe got a quicker entry. But what I wanted to see was as we traded into the low of this range, how did the market respond? Now, right here, the market failed to actually hold, so I didn't execute. The market traded back up, formed this swing point, and then we moved down and got accepted lower, and you saw a lot of aggression get into the market. So that was my trigger to entry, was the market going from a state of balance to an imbalance of sellers. Now, where is my stop? If you look right here, this is 165, and we have our stops at 166, so just below that. Now, I am likely going to manage this trade and trail at my stops as the trade matures, but for now, that's where my stop is going to be at. Now, what can make me determine whether or not I want to move up my stop? Well, I want to see as we move to the downside, where are buyers getting trapped? Where are new aggressive sellers getting into the market? And then also, where are we finding balance? Okay, so if the market pauses for a little bit, moves sideways, and then it starts to make another leg down, I will usually trail my stop to that area. So we can go ahead and see how this trade will unfold and just kind of let it do its thing for now. Floating about $2,000 in profit, which is nice, but I don't think we're necessarily in the promised land just yet. Another thing too, to kind of just narrate this and give you guys an idea of like where my mind is going. Notice how we're seeing a lot of passive sellers have limits here. They're dragging their limits down, moving their limits lower, moving their limits lower. This is the kind of price action we want to see to get a really strong one-sided move. Now, another thing we want to pay attention here is that I post this plan every day in the Discord, but we have our put support down here at 28,000. Now, if that breaks, we will get a very, very large move if it breaks and hold. Well, that's the idea, at least. I shouldn't say we will. There's no such thing as certainty in the markets, right? But if that level breaks, which we tried to test it earlier once, as you can see, we went a little under it. But if we were to actually get under that and hold, then that could be a very massive move. Now, it's important to note that this day is a very large downwards day. But I look at it, you could say, well, we've already made a huge move today. It's likely not going to happen. True, based on just regular probability. But when we think a little bit more Bayesian, that what is the new data we have? Well, the new data is that it's a very strong trend day. We have a level where if it falls, the floor is going to fall out from under us. And if the market is going to see a continued sell-off, this is likely where it would happen from because of the reasons I stated earlier. So I'm happy to get into the trade and play some risk on that idea. Now, maybe it doesn't happen. Maybe I lose money. Maybe I break even. It doesn't really matter to me at the end of the day because I know that this kind of opportunity, if I execute it over time, will have positive EV. So that's the idea here, is that it's something I'm willing to take a risk on. Now, as we can see, we've had a little bit of a retracement here. Haven't moved my stops up just yet, but if we get a retracement like this and the market were to make another leg down, that is where I would move my stops up, but not really until then. Not really seeing the price action I would want to see here, though, to be clear. This can happen and the trade not be, invalid. That's definitely, true as well. But now, as we can see, we kind of traded down into where these buyers stepped in. So the question is, we're probably going to get a reaction from these levels, which you saw. Now, the question is, do those buyers actually, continue the market up? And does that reaction get some follow through? Because we're looking at right now, like we're kind of gridlocked, right? Sellers stepped in up here where they stepped in before. Buyers are kind of defending their position here. So it's really just a battle of who's going to win. That's really what it comes down to in order flow, is understanding how to read that battle and place risk based on it, and not necessarily it's not like you're going to just know every time what's going to happen, right? But it's the closest thing to being able to confirm what's actually going on in the market. Now, I will say there's a lot of aggression, a lot of volume behind these buyers. So it's not necessarily something that I want to see for being in a sell. You know, we're kind of now coming back up to where we might take a loss on this trade. But if we do, it is what it is. I'm going to hold the trade for now because the area that I wanted to get into the market at is still holding until my stop loss hits. So we'll give this thing some time as we trade back into this balance that we originally started to sell off from. But I will say that overall, it looks like we might take a loss on this trade just based on this overall momentum into our level. So now the question is, do we actually form that lower high and make another leg to the downside? If that's going to happen, we're going to need some more aggression from sellers. And if that does happen, then that would be the new area I trail my stop up to. So we're starting to see a little bit of what we want, but we still got some buyers we want to push through. Again, this is kind of the battle, right? Like this is where sellers took control, this balance up here, and we hit into an area where previously buyers took control. So typically what I like to do is default to the overall larger narrative of who's been in control, which is definitely sellers, and try to lean that they're likely going to be the ones that actually hold this. Now, maybe they do, maybe they don't. But that's the overall idea of the trade, is trying to catch that second continuation. But it looks like buyers might end up walking out with this one. Because you can watch how the market reacts with these tipping points. Like previous areas that sent the market really aggressively are usually going to be areas where you see the market either make up its mind and do the same thing, or those are going to be the areas where if it doesn't reverse, then you can safely say that that idea is dead, right? So like, for example, the reason I have my stops here is because that's the point of structure that sent us down. So if this point of structure is going to have a second move, we want to see that held. And wherever the beginning of that volatility really started is likely the area that you're going to see revisited. And if that area is revisited and you see a nice move away from it, then that's, you know, a nice area we can push our stops to, as you can see, right? So in this scenario, what I would do is I would move up my stops to this 151 area, just that most recent high. And you can go onto like a tick chart to kind of get a better idea of where that was, because a lot of times minutes charts aren't going to show it as well. So we can take our stops from 166, and now we can move them all the way down to this high right here, which isn't crazy, but it's a 15-point move. That over time, you know, adds up. Sometimes it's much larger. And, you know, soon I'll probably move my stops up again even more aggressively. Because the idea here is I want to see, you know, really one-sided aggression, and that's going to dictate how trusting I am of this move. Like the less, I guess, of a high grade setup I see forming as I'm in the trade is going to determine how aggressive I am with trailing at my stops. Like if I'm going to let a strong trade run more, right? I'm going to give it more trust. I'm not going to be as picky with what I want to see from it. But if I start to see characteristics of something I think is going to reverse on me, then that's where I start to get, you know, really aggressive with trailing my stops up. Now, another way you can do this is based on like what levels you're trading into, right? Like if the market ends up trading into this 28,000, that's where likely, you know, I want to see building momentum, or I'm going to likely move up my stops much more aggressively. You might see buyers step in again here, right? So these buyers are kind of trying to defend these areas where they were active locally. So we're kind of looking at like battle points, right? Like here we want to see that level hold, because overall that was that second leg down from our entry. But right here, it's normal to see buyers kind of defend these areas, right? What you don't want to see is follow through. Ideally, if we can see a flush through them, then we know they're trapped and they're likely going to get stopped out, or the market's going to go for their stops. So that's kind of what we want to see, but it's not the end of the world if you see a little bit of a bounce there. So hopefully this stuff's helpful. Like, give me comments on this if you guys enjoy this really like play-by-play style and narration, because if not, I can like cut it out and jump between. But I think that like me transferring my thoughts to you guys will provide a lot of value in helping you guys understand how I manage trades and how you can also manage trades at a more high level, and really understand like why you're doing what you're doing, and become more of a professional. Because once you understand market mechanics, a lot of the psychology problems you have start to take care of themselves. You're not really like a nervous wreck because you are clear what you're looking for, and you're more confident because you know that you have an understanding of the markets. A lot of people that trade don't really understand any of this stuff. So like subconsciously they're going to be non-confident because they don't know what they're doing, right? If you go try to talk shop with a bunch of experts in any craft and you don't know what you're doing, you're probably going to feel a little anxious and a little out of place. But that's the kind of situations that traders put themselves in every morning, because you have to think, I mean, do you think that a trader that understands all the stuff we're going through, that's using these tools, that has access to this data, do you not think that they have an edge over the trader who doesn't? I mean, honestly, right? Like, there's a reason that all professional traders are using some form of order flow within their trading, especially if it's short-term trading. Long-term trading, they don't use it as much as you would think. But short-term trading, pretty much all of the institutional traders that I have seen do use order flow in some way, shape, or form. Now, the reason for that is because they understand that it gives them an edge. They understand markets. They are professionals. There's a reason they use these things, right? So now what I want to see here is we're starting to form this little bit of a balance. And when I say balance, what I mean by that is we have this sideways price action, okay? So we have this sideways price action here. Does the market actually get accepted under it, or do we get accepted above it, okay? We can bounce around all day in it. I'm not really worried about that. If we get accepted above it, I would say you're going to run at least to this 100 area, okay? As you can see on this trade, that's a little bit under our stops. So actually what I'm going to do on this trade, I'm going to go ahead and move stops to entry just based on this, because worst case scenario, I can re-enter the trade. But based on the way that this market's kind of moving sideways here, I don't want to see this balance. Like, if we get accepted to the upside, we could run to our stops pretty quickly. So I'll give it some room, but, put stops at break even. Now, if we see the market hold under this balance, and you can do this with price action, you just need to use tick charts, but you can see that if the market holds under this balance right here, then that's going to be another confirmation that we're right. Because if we see the market forming a balance and then bears take control and see an imbalance to the downside, meaning the market actually hangs out under this for long enough, and the price reflects that there is an imbalance of sellers, okay? Because we see a lot of aggressive sellers here. We see volume increasing. Now the question is, do they actually have control of the market? And if they do, you will see price stay under here, maybe retest it, but fall lower. Now, if it falls back into the range, then it's not ready to move down lower yet, right? Now it can bounce a little around, whatever. It's not always picture perfect, but you get the idea here. And once we were to actually start to get accepted, if we do, which I wouldn't say we are just yet, but if we do and start to form more legs to the downside, that's where I would get even more aggressive with my stops here. So I'm watching. Do we form this new leg to the downside here? Like, does the market want to move down lower? Because we see what we should need in order for that to happen. We see an increase of volume, increase of aggressive sellers. But the question is, are they actually in control, right? Because if not, then we're likely going to go up to the high of this range. You see what I mean? And that's how the market's going to bounce back and forth again and again. And it's not picture perfect. It's not 100% of the time. But this understanding will help you navigate markets more than 99% of stuff that you learn online. Now, in this scenario, what I would do personally, and some people disagree with this, because this could just be a retracement to, an area to trade down lower to the point of control of this range. But what I like to do here, before I trail my stops up, most of the time, what I want to see now is a new low here, and then I might trail up my stops to more of a recent high. So I'm always waiting, like, when we kind of think of it like when we breach the castle walls, if you will, when we try to kick down the door to get in and rush in and win the battle, if whatever, sprint, where did that start? That's where I'm going to try to trail my stops from, right? Where was the last area that buyers were trapped, which is going to be the swing point, right? So if we just jetted down from right here, that would be this point. If we pop up higher and jet down from that point, that's that point, and so forth, right? That's how I'm going to be moving my stops down and managing the trade based on, who is in control of the market. So we're seeing a lot of buyers step in, not necessarily getting their return either just yet, kind of just letting this thing unfold. And that's the nice thing is, like, we've got our stops at entry. It's not the end of the world if this thing turns around, but I'm always looking for new data. So, like, for example, I'm not saying that this is going to happen, but if the market keeps putting in a lot of aggressive buyers, right, or a lot of volume on the buying side, but the market doesn't really move significantly up, then that would be a sign for our trade. Now, if the market does move higher here, which it looks like it wants to, then that's not necessarily what we want to see, right? So just kind of giving you guys a play-by-play, like, if you see a large increase of volume and aggression, but then the market moves downwards quickly afterwards, that's a really good sign for sells. Now, if it moves to the upside there, we would say that buyers are getting a return. But you're constantly evaluating this and understanding where the tipping point is, like who is actually winning the battle, not who is actually, more aggressive or whatever, but who is in control, right? You're using the combination of order flow and then the market's reaction to that as a tool to give you an edge and understanding what's actually going on. So I really like that setup here. So this is 28,085. I'm going to go ahead and I'm actually going to move my stops up to this high, which is that 85. I'm going to go 86 and a tick. So I'll go 086 and a tick right here at this high right here, because now I want to see that hold. Okay. If this is going to hold, or if this move is actually going to push the downside, I don't want to see us just keep bouncing back and forth. Like, I've given this range long enough. We're really down below the original area. We've even popped down below this area. So if the market doesn't make a big move here, then I'm not trying to be in this trade anymore, right? I don't want to just, and this is kind of what I meant earlier when I say the more confidence in a trade, the more I'll let it run, the less confidence, the less. Here I ask myself, well, what would change my confidence? Well, if this happens and the market just bounces back up again, I don't really want to be continuously involved in that trade, okay? But if the market starts to really pick up steam here to the downside, that's great. We're also approaching that 28,000, that put wall. So we want to see, like, how does the market respond in that area, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to post an update to Discord. If you guys want to join the Discord, I'll leave a link in the description. Get a full thing so they can see I'm on the Trade-Ovate. So now some important things to consider here. Well, we know that put wall is down here at that 28,000. If the market gets under that and actually holds, that can be, a very, very crazy day, right? But we also have to look at this and say, well, the market is like less likely for that to happen, okay? We want to expect almost the market to rebound from there. So in this situation, if I was trading a prop, what I would do is I'd probably get more aggressive as we get to this area with like taking profits or trailing stops and, maybe look to re-enter. But since I am on my personal account, I'm going to give this thing a little bit of room here. I've got my stops in profit. If I give back some gains, it's not the end of the world. I'll live to see another day. But I want to evaluate and see how our behavior is as we're trading back into this 28,000 level. So as you can see right here, we've already got pretty close. We traded down to 2810s. So I want to see if we can actually build some momentum trading lower. Now, I will say I want to see more momentum as we approach that level if we're going to break through it. Like, this kind of momentum is good, right? I want to see more of that as we approach that level, okay? So now, I'm kind of evaluating the battlefield here saying, okay, well, like, what do I want to see to move my stops up again? Because you always need to be aware. You don't want to get too lenient. And for me, it's going to be characteristics of the push into this 28K level. And you can also see right here, there's some passive liquidity lining up. As we push into it, I want to ask myself, like, what is the energy, right? And now we're kind of forming another balance, as you can see right here, right? We just kind of paused. I don't know if you can see this. I've drawn right here. We formed this little bit of a balance. So now let's say if we get accepted under this, which would have to happen for us to trade in that 28, unless it's just a quick shot, I would want to move my stops up to that 28.40, right? So I'll kind of watch this, and as we get this move, I'll go ahead now, and I'm going to go ahead and move this to 28. I'll give it 28.52, just as a little bit of like some leeway, because I do want to give this trade some room if we do break. Things can get a little bit more volatile here. I'm going to update the group. Boom. Now we want to see, does the market actually make a nice move to the downside from here, or do we just kind of pause, right? Because we didn't hit all the way into it. And these levels are, it's not like always going to be just 20 on the dot. As you can see right here, we do have a lot of passive buyers lining up there. But we start to see reactivity near that level. It's a this is a very serious level. It's also a very significant round number. So we want to kind of see, we want to see a push really through this whole zone, not just right on a 28. It's not like we hit a 28 and we break it, the market is just going to die from there. We want to see like the behavior as we hit into it, okay? Now, if we actually get like another jet down, I would move my stops up to this area, but I want to get another push underneath this area. Not before then, because we can still bounce back up here and do whatever. Stops are a little bit higher. They're up here at this area above. So let's see now. If we get something going on, let me see something NASDAQ. Make sure the recording's good. Dug into this area a little bit. I want to see more aggression though. It's kind of do or die here. I'd say it's safe to move up stops to that 30 area. So I'll go 30 and 3 ticks. Let me announce to the Discord. This is the moment it will reverse because I'm taking a video. All right, now it's going to reverse because I took a video. All jokes aside, though, I'm giving it an extra room here. Like, the reason I'm not really, like, paying a ton of attention is intentional here is because we're at that 28K area. I've moved up my stops quite a bit, right? Now it's like, you know, maybe we get trailed out. We tried to get under this area. It doesn't look like it wants to hold. I'll leave my level right there. If I get trailed out there, that's totally fine. I still make good money on this trade. But I want to give it a little bit of breathing room because we are around this very key area. And if we do see an acceptance lower, that could give us a nice flush. Now, maybe the market rails upwards from here. And that's why I have my stop there, right? That's why I got more aggressive, is because I almost expect that to happen. So when you expect that to happen, you don't really get afraid or like anxious and nervous for the market to take out your trailing stop. That's why I have it there, right? This is my TP. I'm not afraid of that happening. I get a lot of times whenever I'm, you know, on the live stream with traders, they're like, "What? Move up your stop, close a trade, whatever." Like, why don't you move up your stop? It's because, I mean, that's the whole goal, is to let the thing run, right? If this thing trails out and I, you know, make a little bit less money, so be it, whatever, right? I have it there for a reason. I'm moving it in areas based on logic. You can see that this is kind of the area, and this is exactly what I talked about earlier in the first time we moved the stop up, when we almost got stopped out on the beginning of the trade, right? This was kind of the area where that move started. So we should see it hold if it's going to hold. If it doesn't, then I shouldn't be in the trade, right? So if we get ticked out, I make 5K. It's not the end of the world. What would be way better is if it just repelled one tick away from our stop and just absolutely tanked. That would be better. That would be wonderful if that happened. I'm going to laugh if that happens, actually. And I'll tell you, this happens all the time, though. That's because when you understand how to... Now I'm really going to get stopped out for saying this. When you understand perfect levels, you have stuff like that happen, and it's not like that crazy. Now it will rush for my stop loss, just to be clear, guys. Just understand that. I'm just joking. But I'm not going to move my stop up because obviously it's like literally to the dot of where I'm at, right? Wouldn't make much sense to move my stop up to that same area. But all jokes aside, it can, you know, still take me out. I'm not saying it won't from here, but it doesn't matter, right? So hopefully this is really making an impact on you guys. One thing I will say I like is we're seeing, if we get a lower high, not yet, but if we get a jet down, then look right here, we have higher CVD, right? Higher CVD, meaning aggressive buyers are trying to push the market up. If the market falls from a situation where that happens, then that would show that sellers are really in control of the market, okay? Now, if you know, it still can play out and they make a higher high, that can definitely still happen. We're on pretty low time slices here of 30 seconds, meaning like I'm zoomed in. So that CVD divergence doesn't really mean anything yet until we actually form like lower lows. We see a lot of aggression on buyers here. So I think that they probably are going to break out and hit this. So we'll see if we end up getting out for 5K or our level holds again. That would be masterful. I would be so happy. That would like literally make my day. All right, we're out. Cool. We are TP'd and out of the market. Good stuff. Yeah. Absolute banger. Cool. Well, subscribe to this new channel, guys. Let me know in the comments any feedback, any other ideas of videos you'd like to watch. And yeah, as always, I appreciate you guys. Peace out.